Dear brothers and sisters, today I address you with a message that crosses the centuries and touches the core of our existence. In the midst of the challenges of this world, we are called to reflect on a reality that, although hidden in the eyes, reverberates tightly in the corners of the human soul. The title you call us, Legion of Demons on Earth? What's to come? It brings to memory images of forces that multiply in darkness, threatening the peace and order established by the Creator. In contemplating the sacred pages, we find reports that seem to belong to a distant past, but which, in essence, present themselves as warnings for today. In an impactful episode, a man, dominated by a multiplicity of evil spirits, declares in a trembling voice, "My name is Legion, for we are many." This narrative, accurately recorded in the Gospels, is much more than a simple historical occurrence. It symbolizes the destructive power of the forces that oppose the divine light. The message that I share today does not intend to sow fear, but to awaken in each of us the awareness that the spiritual clash is real and requires our vigilance. The Bible, in its passages full of wisdom, warns us that the final moments will be marked by an intensification of this conflict, where darkness will try to be overwhelmed. This warning is not just a call to the afflicted hearts, but an invitation to inner preparation, so that we can strengthen our faith and act with discernment. As we look at this reality, we are led to recognize that spiritual challenges manifest themselves in a subtle and sometimes frightening way. The account of the man possessed by a legion refers us to an era in which the struggle between good and evil gained dramatic contours and impels us to question, would us be in our time witnessing signs of that same battle? Each crisis, every anguish that settles in our life, can be interpreted as a whisper of what is yet to come. It is fundamental, my brothers, that our attention turns to the spiritual dimension that transcends what we see. Faith not only feeds on comfortable certainties, but also the courageous confrontation of the mysteries and the invisible forces that operate behind the scenes of existence. This message, as intense as revealing, invites us to seek the inner fortress and to unite us in prayer, aware that even in the face of the multiplicity of darkness, the light of the Creator is invincible. Allow these words to deeply penetrate in their hearts, arousing the conviction that, however dark is the journey, there is a truth that transcends darkness itself. Each word given here is a call for us to be attentive and prepared, for the signs that surround us are real and invite us to a sincere reflection on the direction that humanity has taken. In the Holy Scriptures, we find an account that stands out for its intensity and spiritual meaning. In several Gospel passages, the episode of possessed man, the one who, taken by such a numerous force that he called himself Legion, reveals to us the existence of an evil that organizes and manifests itself with unique force. When this man cried, saying, "My name is Legion, for we are many," was confronted with the transforming authority of divine power, which, by restoring his peace and dignity, demonstrated that not even the most immense of darkness can oppose the light of spirit. This narrative, recorded with depth and accuracy, is not a mere historical record, but an invitation to introspection and understanding spiritual mysteries. The essence of this episode teaches us that spiritual challenges, often covered in forms that seem almost incomprehensible, are a constant in the journey of humanity. Over the centuries, several pastors, men and women of faith who have dedicated their lives to the study and practice of divine teachings, have reflected on this passage, seeking to understand the signs of a time when evil would be present in an intense way and organized. In addition to the biblical context, there are numerous reports in other works and traditions that address the existence of agglutinated malignant forces. Writers and theologians from different eras have sought to describe the dynamics of this spiritual battle, noting that the confrontation between good and evil is not a mere metaphor, but a reality that unfolds in invisible planes. Classical literature, such as Dante Alighieri's work in the Divine Comedy, reveals powerful images of kingdoms of suffering, where the forces of darkness act without mercy. Similarly, in John Milton's Lost Paradise, we are invited to contemplate the grandeur of the conflict that transcends human limits. These reflections, drawn both in the pages of the Bible and the creations of brilliant writers, point to a common message: the existence of an evil power that, if not fought with faith and determination, can multiply and spread its dominion over the earth. The correspondence between sacred accounts and historical interpretations reinforces the idea that the signs of times are intrinsically linked to the spiritual battle that unfolds behind the scenes of human existence. It is not, therefore, a mere evocation of the past, but an alert that echoes in the present and projects to the future. As we study these passages and texts, we realize that the presence of a legion of negative forces is a reminder of the constant need for vigilance and renewal of faith. Every word of the Gospels and every trace of interpretation of the great writers of the past drive us to seek a life based on truth and justice, where divine light prevails over the darkness they try to set in. The message that unfolds before us is clear. Only by the union of our hearts and by the firmness of our belief in the transforming power of the Lord will we face the adversities that have been awarded and restore the peace that has long longed to manifest on earth. As we enter the heart of this reflection, we are led to a deep analysis of the meaning of spiritual confrontations that permeate the Scriptures. In passages such as Ephesians chapter 6, versicle 12, we are remembered that we do not have to fight against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against the powers, against the dominators of this world of darkness. This message, which resonates hard in the history of humanity, underlines the reality of an invisible battle, fought in a spiritual field where the armies of light and darkness face each other intensely. Each word written in the sacred books carries a weight that goes beyond the literal. It turns into a symbol of resistance and faith. When a man, plagued by a legion of negative forces, finds relief in divine intervention, we are invited to reflect on the power of love and mercy emanating from the Lord. This transformation is not the result of chance, but the result of the action of a higher force that guides and protects us, even in the darker hours. Several pastors, scholars, and spiritual leaders over the centuries have devoted their lives to understanding and transmitting these truths. His words echo over time, calling us to be aware of the signs that manifest themselves in our day. They teach us that the presence of evil forces is not an inescapable burden, but a call to inner preparation. Through the study, prayer, and practice of faith, we are able to strengthen our spirits and resist the onslaught that seek to destabilize our peace. In the practice of spirituality, understanding of this clash becomes essential for the experience of an active and resilient faith. When we recognize the existence of a legion of negative influences, we are encouraged to seek in our prayers the divine protection and the guidance that only the Creator can offer. This call to vigilance is, above all, an invitation to renewal, the opportunity to reaffirm our commitment to the values that build a society based on justice, compassion, and truth. Therefore, the message I share today is a reminder for each of us to keep the look fixed in the light that never goes out. The battle against the forces of darkness is continuous and demands from us not only courage, but also a faith that renews itself every day. May we find in the midst of difficulties the strength necessary to resist and transform the reality that surrounds us, always supported by the love and grace of the Lord. By expanding our vision beyond the sacred texts, we find resonances of this spiritual battle in works and reflections that marked the history of human thought. Classical literature and the writings of great shepherds and theologians bring out images and metaphors that, although from various contexts, converge on the same message of alert and hope. Dante Alighieri, in his Divine Comedy, portrays the circles of hell where souls, tormented by their sins, live with obscure forces that symbolize the loss of spiritual direction. Each layer of this dark universe reflects vividly what happens when the human being moves away from light and surrenders to the temptations of evil. This work, so rich in symbolism, serves as a mirror that calls us to evaluate our own ways and to seek redemption through divine love. Similarly, John Milton in Lost Paradise narrates the angels' revolt and the fall of what was one day a glorious army. From this narrative, we are invited to understand that the organization of negative forces is not the result of chance, but the result of choices and deviations that are perpetuated throughout history. This literary reflection complements the biblical message, showing that warnings about a legion of evil influences have deep and comprehensive roots. Other writers and theologians who have dedicated their lives to the study of spirituality emphasize that the signs of difficult times cannot be ignored. They argue that current challenges, marked by conflicts, moral crises, and the advance of ideologies that oppose eternal values, are evidence of intensifying spiritual war. The convergence of these various interpretations reinforces the urgency of a vigilant stance and based on the faith. This intersection between literature, theology, and history not only enriches our understanding, but also offers us tools to face what awaits us. Knowing the lessons of the past, we are better equipped to interpret the signs of the present and act wisely in the future. The study of these works reveals that even in the face of a legion of negative forces, the light of truth remains unchanging and powerful. Reflection on these themes must drive us to an incessant search for spiritual improvement. Every word of these great writers and every teaching of the pastors who preceded them calls us to strengthen our faith and reaffirm our commitment to justice and truth. In a world where darkness try to make themselves present in a multiplied way, the deep understanding of the lessons of the past is the key to the transformation of the present. As we contemplate the current scenario, we are compelled to establish parallels between the ancient reports and contemporary challenges. We live times marked by uncertainties, conflicts, and rapid transformations, where spirituality is put to the test in various spheres of human existence. Negative forces, although they may manifest in various ways, continue to influence attitudes, relationships, and even the systems that govern society. In this context, the possibility of a legion that multiplies on Earth acquires alarming meaning. The multiplicity of crises, whether social, political, or moral, can be interpreted as a sign of the intensification of spiritual conflict as provided in the Scriptures. This is not a call to superstition, but an exhortation to deep reflection on the mechanisms that sustain evil and the imperative need to strengthen our ties with the divine. Several spiritual leaders throughout history have emphasized that the times of trial are opportunities for the renewal of faith and for reaffirming the principles that build a just society. The analysis of current events in the light of sacred teachings leads us to the understanding that each crisis carries itself the seed of a possible transformation. The challenge is in recognizing these signs and acting with discernment and courage, maintaining the conviction that the light of the Lord is stronger than any darkness that proposes to envelop us. The biblical narrative, coupled with the reflections of the great shepherds and writers, reminds us that the battle against the forces of darkness is not just in the outside, but especially within each human being. The confrontation of adversities is, first and foremost, in strengthening faith and in the constant practice of prayer and solidarity. This spiritual combat requires us a vigilant stance, which translates into the incessant search for truth and justice, even in the face of the opposing winds that try to dodge us from the path of righteousness. In facing the challenges that present themselves today, we are invited not to succumb to pessimism, but to see in them an opportunity for renewal. From the example of men and women who, in times of crisis, have found in faith the strength to overcome obstacles, we can say that the future is not sealed by the rule of evil, but is built every day by those who refuse to abdicate hope. The message is clear. The power of the Lord manifests itself vigorously in the midst of tribulations, transforming desperation into a restart based on light and in truth. That each of us can interpret the signs of times wisely, recognizing that while negative forces are present in various forms, faith and union of hearts are able to reverse any adverse situation. It is in daily resistance, in the practice of love and constant search for a life in communion with the divine that we find the true answer to the challenges of this world. Reflecting on the report of the legion of demons on earth, what is to come, we realize that the message that echoes since ancient times remains extremely current. In Scripture, the episode of man possessed by a multiplied force symbolizes the eternal conflict between good and evil, a clash that manifests itself not only in historical events, but also in our hearts and in our society. The teachings contained in the Gospels, reinforced by reflections of great shepherds and rich classical literature, warn us of the presence of negative forces that, if not faced with faith, can intensify and threaten the divine order. This reflection drives us to incessantly seek spiritual renewal. We are invited to understand that the challenges we face are opportunities to reaffirm our confidence in the transforming power of the Lord. Amid the crises and uncertainties of the present times, the message is unambiguous. Divine light remains, even when the shadows seem to multiply. It is through the union, prayer, and practice of eternal values that we find the strength to resist and transform reality. The narrative has traveled the way from the biblical accounts of a legion of evil forces, undergoing deep theological interpretations and reflections based on literary classics until we reach the current scenario. At each stage, the main message was the same. The presence of negative influences serves as a call to the renewal of faith and the constant pursuit of truth. By recognizing the signs of times and strengthening our connection with the divine, we can face any adversity, transforming crises into opportunities for spiritual growth.